Okay, so I had some technical difficulties with the first version of this, so I don't have a print off of this anymore. But I want to start with number 10, where it says circle all of the circuits that have parallel connections. So what we're looking for a parallel connection is any circuit that has two elements that can be traced back to the same junction. So the two top circuits in there, I think, are pretty obviously series circuits, and the two bottom are both parallel circuits. So I'll draw the two bottom ones and explain why I think that. So they both have a switch in them, and the one on the left looks like that, and so with the switch open here, it does make it a little bit more complicated. But we're just looking for something that has parallel connections. So let's ignore the branch with the switch in it, and I'll talk about that in the end. But here's two elements in the circuit, and I can see that if I trace back this to its nearest junction, it goes there, and if I trace this back to its nearest junction, it goes there. So both of these elements share a common junction on that side. I can do the same thing on this side. So here traces back to that junction, here traces back to that junction. So anytime you can do that, anytime you have two elements that can be traced back to the same junction, then that is a parallel connection. So with this switch open here, actually this battery is not in parallel with the other two elements. With the switch closed, it would be, but with it open, I can trace that back to one junction, but I can't trace that back to that junction because there's that open switch there. But the question only asks for parallel connections, so those two are definitely in parallel, so this is a parallel circuit. The one right next door is actually the exact same circuit, it just doesn't necessarily look like it. So it looks like that, and then there's that. So the same game, right? If I trace this back to a junction, it goes to there, and that back to a junction, it goes to there. So they have that same junction in common. Same here, that goes to one junction, and that goes to one junction. There it is. So a similar circuit here that would not have parallel connections would look like this. All right, so this at first glance looks almost identical to this circuit. I forgot to put my switch in there. So there's a switch. But if you look at, let's look at these two elements of the circuit. They both trace back to this same junction on this side, but this one traces back to that junction. And this one does not have a sort of resistance-free path from here to that junction because this is in the way. So if that were on there as one of the ones asking for a parallel, these things here are not actually in a simple parallel setup.